You're listening to the Educated Cowgirl Podcast, Season 2, Episode 2. Hey Cowgirls, Merry Christmas Eve! As this episode is coming out on December 23rd, I am sure you are either doing last-minute Christmas shopping, hanging out with family and friends, or spending some time with your horses. This is also the last episode of 2024, and I think it's the perfect one to end the year on. I am so excited and blessed to share with you my incredible conversation with a lady who set the reining world on fire recently with not only an amazing run on her horse, the Fireman, but also being the first woman to ever win the Open Level 4 NRHA Futurity. Kaci O'Rourke is a professional horse trainer that trains horses out of Aubrey, Texas, with her husband, Jack Daniels. As a lot of you already know, she has been all over the news in the equine industry this month for her amazing win at the Futurity. But, as you will hear in the episode, she is such a strong and inspiring person, but also very humble in who she is. She is someone that believes that determination and persistence always pays off, and that sometimes you have to make the opportunities happen for yourself. Nobody is going to give it to you, which is something we can both agree on 100%. Kaci and I talk about so many things in this episode, as well as some very important topics that have affected the sport of reining over the past decade that need to be discussed. I can't wait for y'all to hear our conversation, and I know for a fact everyone will be inspired and fascinated by her story and what she has to say. Also, if you love this episode, would you please share it on your social media platforms and stories, and leave me a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. So, without further ado, let's get into my conversation with Kaci. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year! Hey, and welcome to the Educated Cowgirl Podcast, hosted by yours truly. My name is Abby Carpenter, and I am a cowgirl and equestrian through and through. I started this podcast wanting to make more of an impact in the equine industry. That's why I am making it my mission to help promote the industry to the public through sharing my love for horses through education and bringing other experts and professionals onto the podcast with me to discuss important topics that impact the horse community. So whether you are a crazy horse lady like me, want to learn more about horses, or want to learn more about the industry, you've come to the right place. On this podcast, we will be talking about ownership, horsemanship, fitness, faith, breeds, and so much more. We believe that it doesn't matter what type of saddle you ride in or the breed of horse you may ride. We all contribute to this community to make it great, and that there is always something to learn from the back of your horse. So, grab a coffee and get ready to take some notes, and let's get started. This is the Educated Cowgirl Podcast. Okay, so welcome back to the podcast, everyone. Today, I am so excited with who I am talking with today. She is an incredible rider, horsewoman, and now history maker in the equine industry. Thank you again so much for taking the time to talk with me today. I am so grateful you are here. For those that don't know you, if you could please go ahead and introduce yourself to the listeners, what you do, and a fun fact about yourself.
Oh boy. So hey everybody, my name is Kaci O'Rourke, and I train reining horses with my husband in Aubrey, Texas. A fun fact about myself, boy, I can't really think of a major one. I guess I don't like identify as a pink person, but apparently I like pink. I tend to show in pink, and it's like my lucky color, and I like have resisted it for a very long time, but I guess pink is my color.
All right. So I think seeing you win the Futurity might be one of the top highlights of the year, and for me, but for the equine industry altogether. So congratulations again on that.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. So, however, before we talk about that part of it, I believe it would be a good idea to talk about how you got started with horses, your background, and how that led you to where you are today with what you do.
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, I grew up on a horse ranch actually. So my family owns and operates like the largest horse ranch east of the Mississippi. In of all places, Castleton, Vermont. So I grew up in horses. I was on a horse before I could walk. We have a lot of different kinds of horses. So, we lease around 900 head a year to children's camps, resorts like Disney, like Boston PD, I think even like the Canadian Mounted Police, like, bought or lease horses um, from my family and stuff. So we also put on rodeos throughout the year. We do trail rides, like buy and sell a ton of horses. So I grew up like with a lot of different kinds of horses. And I think that gave me an appreciation really early on for just like a good horse, like regardless. And that's really carried with me, even through to now, like just appreciating, a good horse for what it is. But when I started reining, I had like an all-around horse when I was younger. Didn't really get into that. I tried barrel racing, like wasn't my thing. I did English for a little while, like forcibly. Um, and my dad got in a reining horse, a 3-year-old gelding when I was about like 11 or 12. And I just was like hooked. Like I just love this horse. I mean, they're so like just well mannered. I mean, for a start, but just so broke in general. I think you can have anybody can have like a good appreciation for a good broke horse. But I mean, then on top of that, the things that they can do are just so cool. Even then, it was really cool.
Very cool. And then, like, how did that lead you to like starting to wanting to become a trainer and like then eventually moving to Texas?
Yeah, so I started when I kind of showed that I was committed enough. My dad actually got me a reining horse from a horse sale. Actually, he was a gray Martha's Mega Jack, like big gray gelding, and he picked me up from school to come home and like surprise me, and we were like spinning him out in the pasture, and like thought it was just the coolest thing ever. Well, then, I started showing as a youth rider, and I showed all throughout. I think I got like over like 700 youth points, like showed a lot in the youth, and then non-pro. I got a really nice, smart like juice gelding. I think when I was around 16 or so, and he did he was a really cool horse. We won like the NAAC, the Novice Horse Non-Pro, 2 years in a row on that horse, and he was really cool. But when I was about like 15, 16, I just decided that that's what I wanted to do. I just appreciated the like, taking the individual horse and getting, like training them to be the best that they could be. And I didn't like tell a ton of people at the time that's what I wanted to do, but I just knew it. And then when I was about like 18, I, knew that I needed to go where the very best of the best were and learn from the best of the best. I liked the young horses. I didn't have a lot of experience with the young horses at the time, but I really liked it. So yeah, I just opened up the reiner, looked in the back, took all the numbers. There's the part in the very back of the reiner that just used to list like names and numbers. And I just like took it down and just started calling people. And my dad and I went out to Texas, and we went to a couple of places. And really the first one that said, they'd take me on was Casey Deary. And so that's kind of where it started. I had shown quite a bit by that point. Like I had won, 40 or 50,000, and like I said, had like 700 youth points. But I didn't care. I was willing to saddle. I was willing to sweep the aisle, like whatever needed to be done. I didn't care if I got paid. Like I just wanted to learn, and I just wanted to learn, be a part of something really great. So, that's kind of where things started, opening up.
Yeah, no, and I love that. And I love that you explained that you were just willing to just be there and learn and I think that's a lot of kids should really take to heart is what we always try and teach them is it doesn't matter what you're doing, you're there to learn. And I'm not surprised that Casey's the one that said yes because he strikes me as the type of person who he really helps foster young trainers from you and Abby Lingal and then Luca as well. So I love that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think like young people, like they just need to know, like it's not the trainers, and it takes when you're in that position. I mean, I think you're eager to get opportunities and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not the trainer's job necessarily to like gift you opportunities. Like you need to really earn them. And that was the way I went into it was like, I don't, you need to show, those people that, those trainers, they've worked their entire life to get where they are. And so, you need to just show them that you're serious and that you're dedicated and that you put, the team's needs first and, the opportunities will come.
Yeah.
So that's what, I was happy to do whatever. Obviously, I wanted to ride and everything, and I eventually did get the opportunities, but I went into it very, very open-minded.
Yeah, and I love that. I think everyone should go into things open-minded 100%. So moving into your career as a trainer, you mentioned this online and during your interview at the sports desk, that women are often overlooked and underestimated when it comes to being professionals in the industry. What are some obstacles that you had to work through to get to where you are now, and what or who inspires you to keep going even on the hard days?
Yeah, so especially early on, like those first couple years, even at Casey's, I had several people, tell me, and I think it's because I wasn't not that I wasn't overly confident, but I never wanted to seem overconfident, so I didn't just go in there and just like, try to talk about how great I was and just try to like,
Mm-hmm.
take the opportunity. I kind of was more reserved and stuff. So I think it may have come across that I wasn't as maybe ambitious as I felt, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And I always worked super, super hard. But again, I just wasn't out there saying, how great I was or anything like that. And so, I felt like, I had somebody tell me, why don't you just, you need to go back to school. Why don't you just be a non-pro? It's really
Mm-hmm.
hard in this industry for women to be trainers, and it's just a really hard life. You don't want that.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't you go, do this? And so, I never can honestly say that I never let it, like, it never changed a minute. Like, I never even thought about a minute
Right.
of like, maybe I shouldn't do this. And I think that's just the kind of determination that you have to have if you really, really want something. I think it obviously at the time it was kind of a little bit hurtful, because it was a really influential person to me. And I think, it was like, man, I wish they believed in me like I believe in me. But, other people aren't responsible for your success. You're responsible for your success. And if you are that determined and you want something, you're really not going to let anything deter you or stop you. If one path doesn't work, you're going to try another one. And at the time I was kind of like, like that's unfortunate. Like that's their opinion and they're entitled to their opinions. And, I just need to keep grinding, keep working hard and find a way. I think that's been my kind of feeling the whole time, has just been like, find a way to make it work. Like it'll work somehow. I just got to find a way to do that. So, I would say, and I genuinely think that obviously women as riders are phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
And they are just as competitive as anybody else. I think it's maybe, harder for them to envision, success, in this deal, as a trainer and stuff. And maybe now, maybe they'll hopefully, be more encouraged if hopefully, but,
Right.
I think the business aspect of it is something that I think a lot of young people really overlook, because it's not about just training horses. It's about running a business, and that's probably even a bigger part of it than anything. So it's about, managing connections, building bridges, talking to people, seeing opportunities, being, confident enough to go get those opportunities. That's something I really had to work on over time, was learning to be confident and learning to, be bold enough to ask for opportunities, I think. That's something a lot of women, I think, it's hard for us. So that's something that really took me some time to figure out how to do.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And that's something I also had to learn for myself, is like, I had these dreams that, like, I was like, well, if someone would just give me a break and just give me that opportunity, but sometimes no one is going to give you that break, and you kind of have to make that opportunity for yourself and just be determined, like you said, to go for it.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I could see, like, I would see, even early on, like, I would see other, even assistants, getting, these great horses to show. And it felt, at times, if you let it feel that way, it could feel like they were getting the opportunities that I felt like I really needed or wanted or deserved or whatever. But again, like you said it perfectly. I mean, no, and that's one thing that Jack and I, when we started our business, we kind of lived by, like, nobody else is responsible for your success, and nobody else, it's not up to anybody else to invest in you. You've got to invest in yourself. So, if don't rely on anybody else to make your success happen for you. Like, find a way. If people along the way, and if people see you working really hard, if people see you being driven, like, they will, be attracted to that, and they will, we've had a ton of people help us along the way, but don't sit back and wait for someone else to do it for you.
Yeah, exactly. So would you say that Jack is one of the people that inspires you the most?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think, honestly, I have to say, like, I've always been, like, relatively strong-willed, I suppose, but, like, having, I think when we first met, I mean, one thing that I really loved about him was he was, we both worked for Craig at the same time. That's where we met. And when I very first met him, I was always a very, very focused person, and I wasn't, like, off, partying. I wasn't really socializing. Like, I was just like, I know what I want, and that's my thing. But when he got there, Craig, I was starting pretty much all the 2-year-olds by myself at the time, and Craig had said, well, Jack's here, give him whatever 2-year-olds you want. And so I went through and I picked out all the ones that were, like, bronky, or, like, I didn't really love. And I was like, you can have that one and that one and that one. And he's just like, okay. And then when he got them, he, where I was used to, or I expected him, I was used to guys just being like, okay, well, all right, you need to do this, and you're doing this wrong, and you're doing that wrong. He came up to me and he said, well, why don't you, before I take this horse, like, will you show me what you've been doing and teach me what you're doing, so I can kind of understand and I know where they're at. And I kind of thought, I was like, that's not what I expected. Like, no, you're not doing that. But, no, that's how he was. He always treated me from the very beginning on a completely level playing field. Like, he never once looked down on me because, I was, a girl. And when we, started, and at the time he hadn't really shown, I had been the one who had shown. So when we started our business, I mean, it takes a strong person to be okay with, like, in the beginning I was showing, more than him and doing well. And, he was never, it never hurt his ego, like, he was always behind me 100%, like, my biggest cheerleader. And then, when he started showing, and he's an incredibly gifted showman, like, he's incredible in the show pen. And, I mean, it's just been it's amazing because, like, we're both just very in it for each other. I'm just as happy for him to do well. And I mean, obviously, like, if anyone watched him on, Saturday night, like, I mean, I think he won the cheerleader award.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So, I mean, definitely, when things get tough, I mean, it's nice for us to be able to rely on each other. I mean, I'm also fortunate. I have a really great relationship with like my family, my mom and my dad. And my dad, like I call him up all the time and we talk every single day. And I mean, he's great to be able to bounce things off of. And if you have a tough day, just be like, yeah, this is going on. And he can kind of relate to it a little bit. And he's great at giving advice or support through tough times.
Yeah, no, I think that's so great, and I love what you said about how Jack treated you on the same level playing field, because I think a lot of women will get into relationships where they'll start to have a lot of success and the man like can't handle it. And it's great that he's always been there for you. He's never like tried to talk down to you because you're a woman. He's just always been like, he always has respected what you know and you guys learn from each other, so that's great.
Yeah, and in fact, like when we were starting, I mean, the other guys would tease him a lot, like be like, "Oh, you're gonna let her beat you, or you're gonna let her take the good horses," or, he's always been like, "Why would I care? Like, the money goes to the same bank account. Like, you bet I'm gonna let her ride that horse or whatever."
Exactly.
He's just like the most, I mean, like awesome person that way. And so that's what like I loved about him from the beginning. And that's what I would say to other girls, like find yourself a guy that like is your biggest cheerleader and, that's it.
I love that. Okay, so the Futurity has been held for 58 years, and your win, as I said, will go down in history as one of the great moments of it, and also made you a trailblazer for women in reining, as you already know, but in the industry as well. So let's dive deeper into your Futurity journey with the firemen. When did you start to see something special in him while training him leading up to the Futurity?
So yeah, Jack actually was the first one to really kind of think that he was special early on. I mean, he was really like, he was really reactive. He was super athletic, but he would get in his own way a little bit in the beginning because he would try so hard and it would like, he'd just get in his own way. So it took a little bit to foster that and kind of like, slow him down a little bit mentally and just like, get him to, handle himself. But about the fall of his 2-year-old year, both of us really kind of felt like he was pretty special. And we had, two of our really good customers, Peter and Courtney and Morgan. We just told them, we said, hey, I think he's the nicest 2-year-old we've ever had. And we really want to keep him. And we think it's really important that he stays with us and will you guys buy him? And they did, and they just trusted us, totally with him. And he was, I think what's special about him is that, he was a freak stopper. He obviously like had a ton of turn and he was super, super quick footed, but also at the same time, like it wasn't like he's hot,
Yeah.
Or super forward. Like he was very, just to lope him around. He was like, so fun. Super attentive, super focused, super driven, like just very intense. But he really was like all in on learning how to do his job and learning how to do it really, really, really well. And that's kind of when they give you that feeling. It's not often to that extent, and it kind of really set him apart. And I think about the spring by the spring of his 3-year-old year, I think. People had started to notice and there was starting to be a little bit of buzz about him.
Nice. So when you're talking about in the beginning of his training, when he would kind of get in his own way, can you, for those that don't really understand what that means, can you explain what you mean by that?
Yeah. So and sometimes we'll see this with like really athletic 2-year-olds. is, you put their sliders on for the first time. And for instance, he'd stop so hard, he'd go into the ground and then he'd finish, but he almost would struggle standing up at the end because he would get, he'd be pushing so hard. When he'd turn, you'd just be trying to get him to step, quiet, and he'd be trying to go, a million miles an hour, but he didn't quite understand how to go a million miles an hour yet, correct. So it was a lot of slowing him down, especially in the turn, making him just do step, very, very quiet, so he would understand, okay, this is how you do it. If you correct him, he'd almost jump out from underneath you because he was so athletic. So I think he always loped incredibly well, but stopping and turning, he would just overachieve so much or take things way too seriously, to where it was it was, you had to really just kind of slow him down a little bit.
Okay. Yeah, he wanted to go a little too fast.
Yeah, just kind of overdo it, over try. It was so easy. Naturally, it's so easy for him to stop, and he would go in the ground, and then he just panicked because he was, too deep in the ground, and so he'd have to say, hey, try a little less. And this is not as hard as you're making it out to be.
Right. So when did you and Jack have the conversation of you would take over his training and be the one to show him?
Well, there wasn't really a conversation. There was a day in September of his 2-year-old year where Jack had said he had too many horses to ride, and he said, why don't you just hop on and just lope him today? And he doesn't need a hard day. And I just got on him, and he was so much fun, and I'm loping him around and smiling and having a ball. And he knew, he was stop having fun on my horse. And then I just told him, I said, well, I think you have too many to ride. I'll just take him for a little while. And he just never got him back.
I like that answer.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, when the announcer announced your score of 229, that was obviously a very emotional moment. As we saw, you fell to your knees. What was going through your mind in that moment?
I honestly, I didn't think it was real. I just did not think that it was really, really happening. You dream of that moment happening, but you never really are sure that it's really going to happen or when it's going to happen or what. And so I didn't expect it to happen. I knew it was a really good run. I knew it felt great, and I was just so happy with him because it just felt amazing. The run felt incredible, but I didn't expect the score to take the lead. Not that it didn't feel like it could have, but I just, you just don't expect those moments to happen. And so when it did, I was just is this really happening? Is this really is this happening? And I just couldn't believe it. I was pretty much in shock for the next 2 hours.
Yeah. It's one of those don't pinch me moments.
Yeah, it's been like that since. I've been waiting for someone to pinch me and tell me it's not real, but
right.
It was crazy.
Oh no, it seemed crazy, and I'm gonna admit this. When I was watching the live feed of it, and I was watching you do the Run for the Roses part of it, I am not gonna lie, I was crying a little bit. So,
well, I certainly was, and I think a lot of people were, because it was just such I think the people made it too. I think what was so special about it was the people that I didn't even know that were there, that were watching, that were touched by it, that were so excited for us, and our people in the industry that came up, gave me a big hug, hang out around the stalls, were there in that moment. That was the best part of it, was just feeling the whole community be yes, it finally happened for you,
Yeah.
That's what's cool.
And that's something that I just love about the horse industry is we compete against each other, but we're there for each other for the big moments and for the small moments. So that's
yeah.
So
I mean, I think that's what's great about the reining industry, and that's what I love so much. I mean, there's just so much like, you know how hard it is and how hard everything has to fall into place, and so people are just happy when, when they see it.
Yeah, exactly. So along with this win, as I was doing my research, I saw that your earnings also qualified you to be the first woman in the top 5 for the reining division to compete at the American Performance Horseman. Is this something that you were surprised to learn or that you hoped for? And what does it mean to you to be given an opportunity to represent professional horsewomen in reining at that large of a stage?
It definitely was not something even remotely on my radar, like going into the finals or going into my run or even right after. Like, it wasn't even something I was even thinking about until after the sports desk interview. And I walked around the corner and this like nice gentleman reached out and grabbed my hand and said, "I'm from Teton Ridge and, you've unofficially qualified for the American." And I was like, "What?" Like, oh my gosh, I couldn't believe it. I mean, I've been at such an amazing event and I didn't expect for that to happen. I mean, it makes sense and everything, but, I'm super pumped. I mean, I'm really excited. I've been there before and watched. I didn't really expect myself to get to be there for a while at least, but
yeah,
what a cool event. And I mean, I'm so excited to be on such a big stage. So I'm not sure yet who we're going to show for that. I've had, one or two, people reach out on horses, which I think is amazing. So I think we're going to have a pretty cool horse to go and take in there.
Yeah.
But, I'm probably going to not take Tiago in just because he has some other really big 4-year-old events to go to. And so I want to make sure I save him for those. But I'm really thrilled to be able to compete in that.
Yeah, no, and it's the 3rd annual one, and I just think it's so incredible that you're going to be the first woman to do it. So I think that's cool.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so a couple weeks ago, I was actually talking with Christy Landwehr about how breaking the glass ceiling for women still exists today. And 2024 has played a big part in that with women's sports, from basketball, women's rugby, swimming, reining, and more. What do you hope people take away from your win, and how do you think it will change the sport of reining and NRHA for the better?
I mean, I just hope people take away the fact of like persistence pays off. Not giving up and not quitting. I think you can really only fail if you quit. And I think that, I hope, young women can, if this is what they want to do, they'll commit. They'll understand that it's going to take work and it's going to take time and it's going to take a lot of dedication and grit. And I hope that they find that, and stick with it and, go and take those leaps of faith and go learn from the best and go ask the questions and go, don't just expect somebody to give you opportunities, but earn them. And I think I think that I would say, I hope, young women take that away. And I hope that, because nobody who's achieved any amount of success, whatever sport it is, has had it given to them or had it just come to them. I mean, it's come with a lot of, stick with itness and stick with it through the bad days and the times when you're unhappy and the times when you feel defeated and just learning through that and driving and consistently pushing to be better, making good choices, surrounding yourself with really good people. I mean, those are all really big parts of it. I hope like in reining, I mean, there's some really good women, non-pro and open riders. I mean, I hope this like, it seems silly me feeling like this could be like me, but
Mm-hmm.
I hope that they, take from it that they can do it, and
Mm-hmm.
if they work hard, they can achieve whatever they want.
Right. Yeah. No. Um, and it's something that like I think it has to do a lot with like when Patty Carter came in as the judges and stewards person for NRHA, she changed the way a lot of judges were judging women because, and this is something that I found out is that before Patty came in, judges were scoring women half a point lower than the man that just went before her, and Patty kind of had to be like, don't judge the person, judge the horse and the performance. And so I think that's right on what you said.
Yeah, and that wasn't anything that I was really aware of.
Mm-hmm.
As far as in like the judging and stuff, like,
Mm-hmm.
but I feel like I've always just felt like, I'm responsible for what I'm responsible for. And as far as like the judging part goes, like I've always
Mm-hmm.
just felt like, you know what, you kind of have to earn that spot,
Mm-hmm.
where I think they're overall pretty good at marking everybody, but I feel like, you have to just keep going in and just keep fighting and
Mm-hmm.
keep going in that arena and like keep putting good runs in front of them. And eventually they're going to, there's a little bit of the human aspect to judging, right? Where
Yes.
I definitely don't think judges mean to mark somebody more than somebody else
Right.
at all. But I think there's a little bit of a human element of when you get somebody in the ring that's done well time and time and time and time again and puts big runs up all the time, they
Mm-hmm.
kind of expect that person to have a good run in a sense when they walk in.
Right.
And so, when they do a maneuver that was like very good versus good and it was kind of on that line, they might feel, well, I kind of expect this person to have a good run, so like I'm kind of leaning towards very good.
Right.
There's that line of discretion of, most of the time our maneuvers are not cut and dry, like that was a plus app, that was a plus one. A lot of times it's up for debate, like in a
Mm-hmm.
sense,
Mm-hmm.
like a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you can get that extra little, like, yeah, I expect this person. And I think I've always just felt like, yeah, you have to earn that. So I just I've felt like, even the last year, I just like, I'm going to go in the pen as many times as I can. And I'm going to practice my showmanship. And I'm just going to try to like put good run after good run after good run in front of them. And if you have a bad run, leave it there. Like,
right.
know what you did that was bad, know what you have to work on, but leave it there. Like that's the best thing. They say that a lot about athletes is you have to be able to leave the bad in the past and just move on. The faster you can move on, the better you'll be. You can't take those bad runs with you to the next show.
Right. You have to have a short memory.
Yeah, absolutely.
When it comes to competing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm sure you've seen some of the comments of young girls watching you and Tiago, and you mentioned some of this, but saying things like girls can do anything. I actually saw one comment on Instagram saying that her 8-year-old literally said girls can do anything watching you. So when you see those comments, how does that make you feel, and what other advice would you have for girls who aspire to achieve the same dreams as you, whether it's becoming an open reining trainer or any other discipline?
Well, I mean, first of all, it's really kind of special. I think that, and it's hard for me to again believe that it's like me, but like it's really special that like people would feel that way or that, and I'm just thankful that they would even think to like comment all the messages I've been sent and the videos. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's like it means a lot, so I really do appreciate it. And I'm happy for anybody to like reach out, come visit. Like I love it. But again, like I would just say, I think what I would hope, like if, I would hope that like if you find your passion, I mean, I think I was very blessed and very fortunate to find my passion early on. Mm-hmm. And like just know in my heart, like without a doubt that like, gosh, this is what I love and this is what I want to do. And, you know, I mean, even when I was young, you know, like you're like, I don't know if I'm going to be, you know, as good as I want to be at this. Like I always, you know, there's always that little bit of doubt, but there's, you know, when you want something bad enough, you're just going to do whatever it takes to get there. And so I would just say, you know, especially for being taken seriously in any sport, I think, you know, or any business, anything. I mean, just be, you know, surround yourself with really good people. Pick people who are better than you or people that like, don't go for your comfort zone. I think that's where a lot of young people mess up is they go where they think it's comfortable or they go where they think it's going to be a little easier. And like, they don't like go where you're uncomfortable, go where you're going to be challenged, go where you feel like you're not enough and you will rise to that level. Jack and I both have always tried to surround ourselves with people that like we aspire to be and learn as much we can from them. And you kind of find like when you're around those people and you just keep working and working and working because you're trying to compete with them and you're trying to be as good as they are, you look back and you're like, wow, look how far I've come, you know? And it might feel like you're not making progress a lot of the time. And, you know, it's just one of those things you'll kind of get to a point where you stop and you look back and say, man, I used to dream about being where I am right now. And then you look ahead and you'll say, man, I still have so much further to go. And that's kind of where I feel like all the time is I look back and I think, wow, I would have given anything to be where I am right now. And then I look ahead and I'm like, man, I still got a long ways to go to be where I want to be. So that's what kind of keeps driving you forward, you know?
Yeah, no, I love that. That's so good. So you mentioned this a little bit, but going back to Tiago, what are your plans going into 2025 with him? Are you going to take him the Derby route first, or do you have any breeding plans for him?
Yeah, so our main priority with him is going to be showing. He's got a long Derby career, and hopefully even longer after that. And I mean, he came out of that Futurity really well, really sound mentally and physically. And I think he's got like a lot of big runs left. I think he has even more in him. So I mean, our plan, you know, as a 4-year-old, I'm not exactly sure where we're going to show him first. I'd like to at least take him to the Derby and the 100X stakes, but we'll just see where he feels good. And when he feels ready. We definitely want to set him up for success. We are tentatively considering maybe standing him in 2026. If we do, it would be to like a limited book of mares. Like our main, we just don't want to mess with his show career. So yeah, if that's all good, we're doing all the stuff that we need to do to be ready for that and to plan for that. And if all that's good, then we will probably move forward with something for 2026. Yeah, but he's going to show, and he's going to keep showing as long as he's happy and sound and willing. Yeah.
Great. That's so great. And you're probably having too much fun riding him to stop him riding anytime soon.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I'm not ready to quit that yet.
Right.
I know. I think his career is really like just beginning. I mean, I think we've just touched the surface of it.
Love it. So before we get into the rapid fire questions, in your own words, how would you define an educated cowgirl?
Oh, well, actually, I think that's a great question. Being a horsewoman, I mean, just knowing a horse. I mean, knowing their expression, knowing their, attitude and mind. And I think that plays so much in training is knowing why a horse is doing something. So just being educated about the horse. I would also say, like I said, touched on before, like a bigger part of this industry is running a business. So especially from a training standpoint, if you're talking from a training standpoint, like learning how to run a business, learning how to communicate well with other people, talk to customers, project yourself well, market yourself. Like, that's all a big, big, big part of this as much as the training part. So I think that's even something I wish I would have known more about before we kind of went out on our own.
Yeah.
So I think, learning about that, don't jump into this without thinking you're just going to ride horses all day and that's it. I mean, there's a whole lot to it. So I would say that, but I would say just learning how to be a good horseman. I mean, I almost would put the riding aspect of it like not towards the bottom, but a little bit. I mean, knowing your horse, being able to feel if they're a little off or if they're, need care, knowing, I spent a lot of time as an assistant holding horses for the vet, and I always made sure to ask as many questions as I could. Holding the horse for the farrier, asking as many questions as I could. Like, those other jobs that you don't think are yours, like, learn about them, be educated about them so you can have educated conversations and help make, correct decisions with your owners and help, guide them and manage these horses, because a lot of the secret to doing well at these big events is your preparation and your management of the horse as much as it is the training part of it.
Yeah, no, I love that. I think it's along those lines, you have to be detail oriented, and that's something
Absolutely.
that I had to learn through my career as well. So, so good. Okay, so for our fun rapid fire questions, what is your go-to horse show snack?
Pretzels.
I like it. Are you an early bird or a night owl?
I'm usually an early bird. Like, I do not like staying out late. I would much rather get up in the morning. At the Futurity, because at the first go, Jack was early. We ended up doing the night shift, and that was a little difficult for me, but we made it work.
Nice. What is your all-time favorite sweet treat?
Just dark chocolate. Like, straight dark chocolate.
That's a classic one.
Yep.
So because this episode will come out before Christmas, what is your favorite holiday tradition?
Well, truly now, I mean, we don't really, I mean, we work on like Christmas, so I don't really know that there's a lot of holiday tradition. I mean, when I was little, my dad used to like put little hoof prints in the house and hoof prints through the snow and put half-eaten carrots everywhere, like the reindeer had been there. So I thought, that was pretty cool. But for now, I mean, we work and we give the horses some treats and send some videos of the horses to the owners, and yeah.
Nice. Well, Kaci, this has been so much fun to talk to you. Thank you again for coming on.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, so for people that want to follow you or follow Pond Hill, or reach out to you, where can they do that?
Yeah, so on Facebook, our Facebook page is Pond Hill Performance Horses. Jack and I both have our own Facebook pages, but our business page is Pond Hill Performance Horses. And then we also, like, on Facebook, and I think we're working on getting it on our website, but we have like kind of a members only section that we're kind of working on that'll have, behind the scenes, training tips, follow along with horses, stuff like that. So, we love to get all the followers we can on that. And then Instagram, I think we're also Pond Hill Performance Horses. And on TikTok, we're Pond Hill Perf Horses, because it wouldn't allow the whole thing. And then our website is www.pondhillperformancehorses.com. And we have a breeding website, www.pondhillmares.com. So yeah, we appreciate all the follows and everybody keeping up with us.
Great. That's so great. All right. Thank you again, Kaci.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for joining me for this episode of the Educated Cowgirl podcast. I hope you enjoyed it, learned something new, and will come back for more. But for now, stay blessed and ride on, cowgirls.